This is another video in my series of science fair judging videos. And in this one, I'll talk about one of the more difficult questions that we have to deal with. And that is the concern that many parents have that the awards are going to somebody who didn't really do the work, whose parents or mentors did the work for them. And we really don't want to be giving awards to those students, at least not if we're not giving them to students who actually did the work. Now, in my experience in judging science fairs, the number of times that mentors, teachers, or parents really did too much of the project is pretty rare. So it's not as common a problem, again, at least in the science fairs I've judged, as some parents seem to think. But it's our job as judges to try to make sure that the judging is completely fair and that we are not giving awards to the wrong students. In contrast with other competitions that students engage in, like athletic competitions and spelling bees and math competitions, we don't get to see the students actually doing the work. Science fairs are projects that take place over weeks or months, and we don't have a judge present watching the students do the work. So it's a little bit difficult for us to judge, is this really the student's work? We're limited to what we can see at the end of the project. And now, this makes things particularly difficult because the products that we're seeing, the poster, maybe a video, possibly other presentation things, models, even the students' prepared spiel may have been done by other people. Now, the presentation of the spiel is obviously being done by the student, but they may have memorized a script written by somebody else. Again, this isn't very common, but it could happen. And so it's our job to try to avoid that sort of problem. Now, it's not enough just to say, oh, this looks like adult level work. It couldn't have been done by this student. Because we're looking for exceptional students, and many of them are quite capable of doing what seems to be adult level work. I've known fifth graders who are quite capable of doing beginning calculus. I've known middle schoolers who can do sophisticated statistical analysis. And with modern computer tools, the graphic design of the posters and reports and stuff can easily be stuff that 20 or 30 years ago many adults could not have done. So the quality of the work can be quite high and still be entirely the student's work. So we want to be particularly careful not to make the mistake of saying, well, a mentor must have done this, when the student really didn't. This is insulting to the students and is extremely painful for them to be judged not having done the work when they know they've done it. So mistakes can be made on both sides. How do we tell? About the only tool that we've really got left is the interview. That's the only time we really interact directly with the students. Students can be giving a pre-prepared spiel, and in that spiel you can get some idea whether or not they understand what they're talking about, whether they use words correctly, whether or not they can speak clearly and fluently about the stuff they've done. Unfortunately, this is not a perfect test because a lot of students are nervous. I mean, you're a fifth grader or sixth grader talking to an adult about something and it's important to you, you can stumble. You can forget what you were going to say. And so just the fluency with which students do their presentation is not in itself a great test. It gives you a little indication, but by itself it's not enough. What I found more useful is to ask pointed questions to try and gauge the depth of understanding the students have, to ask them about particular things in their presentation, graphs that they have, explaining what the axes are, asking them what went wrong in the process of doing the experiment and how they fixed those problems, what errors possibly still exist in the remaining experiment, what things they could do differently. There's a number of ways you can try and get beyond just what they've presented in their poster or in their spiel. And these questions I've often found are the ones that really help me separate the students who've really done the work and thought about it and have some understanding of what they've done from those students who did a project that really was designed by somebody else. Even if they've done the stuff their hands themselves, quite often, if they haven't done the mental work of designing what they're doing, their depth of understanding is more limited. And since we're really looking for understanding of the scientific process and of what they've done, this is what I've found to be the most useful. And one thing you have to be careful about in asking questions like that is not to ask leading questions. This is not a teaching moment. You're not trying to provide information to the students that they didn't already have. You're merely trying to find out what they already know. The danger of leading questions is some of the brighter students will take stuff that they've just learned from one judge and feed it to the next judge. And then you'll get, from different judges, very different views of what the student already knew, because one judge would say they didn't know anything about X, Y, and Z, and the next one said, oh, but they told me all about X, Y, and Z, and it's because some judge in between had asked them leading questions that explained the stuff that they didn't understand beforehand. It's okay to explain things to students in the written feedback that you give them after the judging's over. In fact, that's an excellent use of that written feedback, is to add explanations of things that you think they were unclear on. But don't do it during the interview, because it contaminates the interviewing process. And the interview is really the primary quality control that we have on science fair judgings, so that we can reassure parents that the students who are getting the awards really are the students who did the work.